One more time, this is how I sound. How about you?
If you're too loud, all you need to do is just quiet yourself down the whole time.
I'll just whisper.
I'll just whisper.
To me, you look dark, but to here, you do not look dark.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Because of that light, and I can't see this light because it's behind me. And
Which does not make sense.
That's how light works. If it's behind you, you can't see it.
You can't see it. Well, that's how everything works.
That's how everything works.
If something's behind me, I can't see it.
I don't have compound eyes.
That's
Dude,
how
also the other day, what the hell? I played against Sparta, you know the one with speed boost?
Yeah.
It hypnosis me 4 times, hit every single time.
Really?
I was like, do you have the item that increases your accuracy? What in the fuck is going on? And after all that, Garchomp Earthquake just won me the game anyway.
Oh, that's so
fuck
funny.
you piece of shit, stupid hypnosis.
That's so funny.
I felt like I was like getting pranked or something. It was insane. Because like, is there another ability on this? Does this Pokemon have compound eyes? What the fuck is? But it was speed boosting, so it wasn't that.
No.
It must have just been the item that increases the accuracy.
Is the lens in the game?
Yeah, only 20% accuracy boost. I'm pretty positive though. I think I tried it on a shitty mine in the beginning.
Why wouldn't I have not put that on Venusaur at any point? I feel like upping your speed boost.
Because you need Focus Sash to survive? Because Venusaur is a little fragile.
Why do I need to survive if I'm going to hit a sleep powder before they can move?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not in there. I could have sworn that it was. I'm trying to justify why the fuck I got hypnosis 4 times by a 60% accurate move.
I'll tell you what's bullshit is all of Pokemon's...
Pokemon experience bullshit.
Pokemon in general is bullshit. Yeah, the variance in Pokemon.
I like it.
Well, I like it too, but
I flinched my opponent's Pokemon 4 times with the Rock Slide the other day. It was awesome.
You see, I don't think that the percentage numbers that they tell you are accurate. I think that it's just like whatever they feel like doing.
Sometimes I do feel like you flinch your opponents more the higher your speed is, which I think mathematically is technically true because if you're going before your opponent's Pokemon more often, you will hit more flinches. Ooh. But I think also like purely, like if your Pokemon has a higher speed, they will flinch the opponent's Pokemon more often. See, that's not really true, but that's how I feel in my heart.
I have a theory that I think is legit from in-game runs where I think that if you get flinched once and then the same move is used against you again, you have a higher % chance of getting flinched that second time.
I feel like that can't be right. Like, why would they make it worse like that?
Why would they make it worse? But anecdotally, I have bitten and crunched so many things in game runs that flinch and then flinch again and then get flinched again and then get flinched again. Like, there's something about chain flinching that I don't know if that's like a mechanic from really old games, but
what I think it is just you notice when that happens, because if you use a flinch move more than like once, you're going to use it another time. So when you flinch 2 times, 3 times in a row, you remember those times and you never remember the times where that doesn't happen.
I understand why you think that's the case, but I don't believe you.
Fair. You're allowed. You're allowed. You're allowed. What you're saying makes sense, but I don't agree.
Yeah, I understand like the facts and logic that you use to get to here, but my feelings are
feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. Yeah. This podcast is brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. Use code PLAY2WIN5 with the affiliate link down below for 5% off to help support the show.
Welcome to the Play to Win podcast, where we talk about winning in cEDH. I'm Cam.
And I'm Dylan. This week we are talking about odds and ends, a couple of weirdos, a couple of freaks, some decks that are not so popular but do well sometimes, some weirdo versions of popular decks that you might not expect.
It's the P.T. Barnum of cEDH.
Oh, what is that? Is that a circus situation?
Yeah, he was the guy from The Greatest Show, and just learned he was actually a huge asshole and not as nice as that movie turned him out to be.
Big surprise. White dudes from the past are big assholes.
And we make great movies about how awesome they are when they're not.
Anyway, let's talk about some weirdos and freaks.
That sounds good.
Cubby can decide what part of that we want to cut.
What should we? Probably none of it.
Probably none of it.
All right, yeah, I have a couple honorable mentions. I figure we should start with some like alternate versions of popular decks that you see, because I think that there's some fun stuff here.
Yeah, we'll ease into it.
Ease into it. Yeah. So I have a couple honorable mentions here. Blue Farm is an honorable mention. I guess we should say what we're really talking about, right?
Yeah.
These are like decks that you would typically see in a cEDH tournament setting, but there's a kind of weird caveat to them because there's something inside of the 99 that you don't see in the command zone that is going to take you by surprise and be like a completely different version of the deck than what you totally expect. This is something that, and we talked a lot about Pokemon in the intro, but going back to Pokemon, this is something that you see a lot. If you,
especially in close sheet,
exactly,
who the fuck item are you on?
You kind of like expect all Whimsicots to be running a similar moveset. So once you know that Encore is extremely popular, you know to start playing around Encore.
Sometimes they play Protect now, which throws me off when they Protect.
Exactly, right? Now you get thrown off when they play Protect. So we're going to talk about a couple of Whimsicots Whimsicott's the Play Protect.
Okay, great. Blue Farm, I think, is a good start because it's kind of funny because like Blue Farm is like the most popular deck in the format. It's always around, but because it's so popular, you can play a lot of weirdo picks and it's still going to be really good and you can catch people off guard a lot.
That's the thing. That's kind of why I have this in the honorable mention category, because a lot of times it's just like 4 or 5 cards that you're swapping out instead of changing up the whole strategy.
Yeah.
Now, you kind of can change up the whole strategy. Like there are slower builds of Blue Farm you can lean into, or you could play things like Rainafelth, Jester's Will, and Bergie, and that way you can have like a more turbo version of Blue Farm.
I think that one's better.
I think that one's a little bit better too, although I had an insane match the other night where I got to do like the Storm Kiln Artist thing with Professional Facebreaker at the same time, which is absolutely bonkers together.
Especially if you get to like Flusterstorm something where you have the Storm Killing Artist out and you're like, Flusterstorm, Storm is 10, make 10 treasures.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. Storm Killing Artist just makes any single combo line that you're trying to go through make it so that you have a Ral in play, but it's a way better Ral.
I don't know if that's one of the cards you want to talk about, but that's like a crazy including decks. The 4 mana, it's like nuts to me. I feel like it's so much, but like sometimes it's just like almost like a Smothering Tithe. You know what I mean? Just like ways to make mana as you're slopping through a bunch of card draw engines is so powerful.
Go ahead. What I was unsure about the card at first is that like what makes Smothering Tithe good is that you just play it and pass and then you're going to get treasures for your next turn. But like what makes the 2/2 good that gets bigger for as many artifacts as you have.
Storm Killing Artist.
Thank you. Yep.
I immediately forgot the name of it.
Yeah, but I knew that line of text. That card requires that you have other things to go on top. And not just like mana rocks, like a VV situation. Like you need specifically more instants and sorceries to cast. So like the plan kind of has to be play it and then start to interact with free interaction as you pass the turn. And then on your next turn, it's going to be way easier for you to win.
Or like resolve like the card advantage first. Turn 1 Rhystic Study, turn 2 Storm Killing Artist. And now that you've been fed a bunch of cards,
how do you lose that game?
How do you lose that game? Right? Exactly. Like I think that's where Storm Killing Artist and a lot of the other mana makers that we've all been playing recently, like Lotho and like the 0/3 that draws your opponents a card.
Tataru
and Cabbage Man, Merchant Man, Cabbage the Cabbage. All of these cards that work so well with Rhystic Study, like as the game slops up and as you're drawing a bunch of cards, they give you the mana to keep on going. Those cards have proven to be like, oh, this is just like Splinter Twin when you resolve 2 of them. When you get like card advantage and mana advantage at the same time, so hard to lose those games.
I'm not sure that like I love this build of Blue Farm that has like all the treasure stuff in it, but it's definitely strong as you're leaning into the late game and you have these synergies that go together. I don't know that there's like enough of the good synergies that go together and enough ways to get them because I'm not really incentivized to tutor for Mayhem Devil in that situation. I'm much more incentivized to find a way to find intuition and just like win the game instead of like trying to control the board down a little bit more if I have to. There's scenarios where Mayhem Devil's good, but I would cast it if I incidentally drew it. Whereas if I had like Rainafelth in my hand, it's way easier to just win the game with all these cards instead.
And there's so many treasure makers recently that are in the Blue Farm colors because Blue Farm is 4 of the 5 colors. There's so many different things that work well with these treasures. Like the Mayhem Devil you said works out to like ping the table. The Professional Facebreaker, when you have enough treasures and you can sack them for card advantage. And then with things like Tataru and Lotho and Smothering Tithe, there's just so many things that make treasures right now. You could really lean into this like treasure package in a lot of decks, but in Blue Farm specifically.
It kind of seems like if you have 3 versions of a card that do a similar thing, that seems to be like a sweet spot in cEDH. I'm just coming up with this theory right now.
Yeah,
so
just
tell me if this is like, just making this up. But like I'm realizing like, okay, Necropotence, Necrodominance, Ad Nauseam. Okay, that's a 3-card package that wins the game. Wheel of Fortune, Windfall, Time Twister. There's a great way to make sure we can find one of these cards in our opening hand.
Right, yeah.
And I feel like we're finding this with treasure makers now between Tataru, Lotho, and Smothering Tithe. Here's a 3-card package where now that we have 3 cards that will make us treasures on everyone's turn, now we can start to play other 3-card packages that are going to synergize with this 3-card package that we have. And if you decide that one of them's bad, you can like swap out that whole 3-card package and move them in with something else. Does this make sense?
It
like
does.
3 is a magic number.
I view the magic number as closer to 6 than to 3 because in like 60 card, 4 is the magic number.
Yeah.
So when you add 40 more cards, you add 2 more cards to like what would be considered a play set. That math is probably wrong. But like you said, Necro, Ad Naus, but then you also said Wheel, Windfall, Time Twister.
So you just want to put them all together.
For me and Rockside, those are 6 things that I want to see. I want to mulligan hands until I find one of those 6 things and then make enough mana to play and cast them and have mana left over afterwards.
So then in Blue Farm, it's
like Lotho, Tataru, Smothering Tithe, Professional Facebreaker, Storm Killing Artist,
and the Mayhem Devil
and
now, I guess.
Mayhem Devil. That's not a mana maker.
That's the package, though.
There's probably another mana maker that was what you're looking for. But like, yeah, like that would be like a package or something
What
like
else
that.
would make treasures?
A Ragavan, you know what I mean? Like,
Ragavan,
I don't know, like
okay.
That. Yeah, something like that was like, to me, that's what I think is like a cEDH set is like 6 cards.
Okay, yeah.
Is that right? Is 60 plus 40, 40 is 66% of 60, so you're adding 66%, and then 2 is 50% of 4, so you're not adding quite as much. So technically you would need 7 to make it close to a play set, is that right?
Some
math
no
nerd-
idea where you got any of that math
Some
from.
math nerd is like, you're a fucking idiot. So 40
Okay.
is 66% of 60, right? It's 2/3 of 60.
Yeah.
So you're adding 40 cards to it. So you're adding 66% to get to 100 cards.
Okay,
right?
I see, yeah.
And then 4, if you're adding 66% to 4, you're adding like 3-ish cards to 4. Not 2 cards to 4. You're adding like 3 cards to 4.
What is 2/3 of 4? You're adding like 2 point some cards to
2
4.
point some, yeah. So, six to 7.
6 to 7. Nice! We did it!
That's around a cEDH playset.
All right, nice.
This is play to win, making up math. I think some of
Nice.
what I said is almost right.
I think some of what you said is also right. I'm just happy that we came to the conclusion that 6-7 is the play set.
There we go.
That's really what I'm happy about. Yeah.
Were those the
if
cards you
have
wanna talk
6 or
about for
7
Blue?
things, I'm of decks that I want to talk about, and,
Okay.
and cards that we want to talk about in those decks is really like what I have here.
That's the weirdo version of Blue Farm. Is the little more treasure focused version.
Yeah, you can go a little bit more fast. You could go a little bit more treasures and slow. You could even go sloppier too and start
Yeah.
playing like more mirror maids and stuff. If you don't want to look through your deck in treasure ways, you can draw cards instead.
That's the strength of Blue Farm is you can go kind of any direction and your opponents don't exactly know which way you're going.
And that's why it's our honorable mention.
What's the next deck that you would like to talk about?
Well, I figure we should talk about the deck that kind of like originated this archetype of
Different.
Yeah, of different, which is Sémi-Blue.
Rock Thrash in particular, kind of, but yes, the Sémi-Blue version is the extra weirdo version.
Rock Thrash is definitely very
Flexible,
but you kind of expect it to do a very similar thing. Like you expect the same win lines out of
Yeah.
it every time with like Orboro Breeze Caller and Gaia's Cradle.
Gaia's Cradle's got to be involved. That much we know, right?
Exactly,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's like very lands-based version, and you're playing like what's the new 4-mana one that you can play lands from your graveyard and you mill whenever you play a land.
Ice Till Explorer.
Ice Till Explorer, and
Right?
you're playing like only blue-green cards, and like no real red cards.
And you're kind of built around that 4-drop slot.
Right,
of
yeah.
4-drop slop.
4-drop slop.
4-drop slop.
4-drop slop.
Of
yeah.
like sowing Myco Spawn and like a bunch of these other ways to easily get Gaia's Cradle into play and
yeah.
Displacer Kitten and a bunch of other dope creatures that work stupid well together that
Yeah.
untap Cradle and it's very low to the ground. You have a lot of great 4-drops, but that's kind of like the high end of your curve because we cut.
Even Seedborn Muse gets cut sometimes. in that deck.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe we're on Wandering Archaic as like a dope way to interact. It's the word of the day, by the way. Dope.
There's also like the red version that plays a couple more red spells. And when I say a couple, I literally mean 2. Sometimes they play Gamble and Underworld Breach as one couple of extra red cards.
Yeah, and by red cards, we mean things that require red mana to cast.
Right,
Deflecting
yeah.
Swat and Flare of Duplication are all in these decks.
Right. But really, the weirdo version is the one that's playing Cascade card.
There's a surprisingly amount of Apex Devastator that we're going to be talking about today, which is kind of funny.
I kind of get it. Like, if you're playing into the Rhystic Study world, yes, you are making one spell cast effectively 5 total spells, and you're giving your opponents 5 Rhystic Study draws. But, like, a lot of the times, the things that you're cascading into are, like, more Cascade spells. And, like, what are their counter spells going to do against fucking Maelstrom Wanderer that's
the
coming
thing.
down?
It's the Atali thing, where, like, you just overload them with the amount of spells that you're casting versus the amount of spells that they're drawing. They will never be able to keep up.
Unless they have the mana and the card advantage. You have to get them before they have both of those things. Get them when they just have the Cabbage Merchant, or get them when they just have the Rhystic Study. But once they have both, that's when it becomes very hard. That's why these sloppy decks are able to like beat these other decks, is when they're able to get both in play quick enough.
It gets harder, but it's still very doable though too, because they still have to draw the right amount of stuff and still know when to interact with you. But like it's still hard when like they're still playing a lot of non-creature interaction, and everything that you're doing in Sémi-Blue is creature based.
Right.
Like there's a lot of cracked things that they have that are non-creatures in here, but a lot of what you're doing is like making mana in unconventional ways with things like Great Whale and Peregrine Drake.
Great Whale's a real card?
Great Whale, yeah. When Great Whale comes into play, untap 7 lands. It's a 7 mana 5/5.
That sounds crazy with Gaia's Cradle and you're playing Deserted Temple and shit like that.
It's another Peregrine Drake. Why wouldn't you just want to play another Peregrine Drake? How many of these free creatures can we play, right? We're already on Cloud of Fairies. We figured out how good that is. What if we were just able to make 7 mana and could play Great Whale?
You're not going to have 7 lands, I think, is the issue. But even if you untap like 4 lands, I feel like this is like fine. If like 2 of them are Gaia's Cradle's effects, you know what I mean? Like if you're untapping like 4 lands and 2 of the lands make like 6 mana, that's still perfectly fine.
So it ends up going infinite with things like Palinchron, which is sick, so that way you have these ways to make infinite mana without casting a non-creature spell at any point of the game. Which
I
is
also
kinda
like with
nice.
like Snap and Eternal Witness. That one's kind of like you can do without any of these big stuff, but these big creatures make that line a little bit easier to achieve, I think.
And this whole Sémi-Blue list, I mean, it got popularized in 2025, so it's a little bit known. zone at this point now. It just runs like all of these humongous creatures instead of playing low to the ground and interactive stuff. It's just trying to be as big as possible with things like Nyx Bloom Ancient and Ghalta Stampeding Tyrant. As many ways to put things into play as possible, which like Ghalta kind of makes you a ton of mana in that, right? If you can put 2 7-mana things into play, that makes you 14 mana.
The issue that I have with this deck is sometimes I'll see the deck put a bunch of shit into play and then pass a turn. It's like, okay, you have like 20 power in play, but like that's not really anything yet. There are some other decks that do also similar things. One that's probably on our list to talk about. I hope it's okay that I segue a little bit. But like Zhulodok.
This is one that's not like built unconventionally, but this is just like
it's
a weird
unconventional deck.
Like a weird freak deck.
Which does a similar thing. It does have cascade on like colorless spells, but it also gets to play weird like pseudo stacks pieces. Like it plays like Karn and it plays Chalice of the Void and some weird things that like it's like kind of difficult for your opponents to do anything.
Because there's other stuff that's in play that's stopping them from doing stuff. Like Disrupting Flute is like a very key critical piece in that deck. And you would think that for a colorless commander that can't really interact, it shouldn't be able to interact in reality, but it can actually do a surprisingly large number amount of things.
Yeah, what's the 7-mana board wipe all color permanence?
Oh,
do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, how crusty is that?
All is dust.
All is dust is what it is. Yeah.
If you want to get rid of all the heuristic studies, that's a good way to do it.
That's a great way to do it. Yeah, and then if they try to interact with you, there's also a free counter spell if you control an Eldrazi with power 7 or something.
Yeah.
Or just a creature with power 7.
Is Zhulodok a 7 power though?
Zhulodok is a 7/5, good sir.
But it's a 6 mana.
But it's 6 mana.
That's where it gets confusing to
and
me.
And it cares about 7 drops.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's another one where I feel like we have a game coming up that's in 2 days, if you're watching this podcast today that it comes out, where Zhulodok like does a lot, and also a Chiltuin that's coming out this Tuesday where Zhulodok also does a lot, and it feels kind of crazy. It feels like it really shouldn't be doing what it's doing, but like it just has access to so much like fast mana and colorless mana, and you get to play so many weird, like the keys with Grim Monolith are super powerful.
Oh god,
there's just like a lot of weird stuff that you can do, and if you're playing into a very specific meta where everyone has a lot of like negates, not really negate, but like counter spells that counter non-creature spells, when you have like 3 spells on the stack at once, you can counter the one thing, but I have 2 more cascades coming after this. Like, I'm gonna keep going.
It kind of feeds off that Sémi-Blue thing. I think that's kind of what you were saying, where this deck kind of came from. Again, a more unconventional way of doing so, and you get to kind of like paint yourself in this different light of like, oh, I'm the colorless deck. What am I gonna do?
Right,
like,
exactly.
It gives you this weird political tool at the same time.
They do like what Atali does, except Atali wins a little bit too much, where like people know how to beat Atali and they know they have to respect Atali, whereas like Sémi-Blue, and Sémi-Blue is rock thrust, so you gotta respect it too, but like Zhulodok, it's kind of hard to respect the Zhulodok deck when there's like blue farm at the table.
That,
you know
especially
what I mean?
when Zhulodok isn't doing anything potentially scary for like 2 or 3 turns into the game, and it's not even cascading until 3 or 4 sometimes.
Right. You can't like justify using your one piece of interaction on the Zhulodok sometimes until it's too late. It's like a Kinnan issue. Like by the time you're like, okay, we gotta do something, well, it's too late. They have 20 mana. Do one thing. Who cares? They don't care anymore.
I had a blast playing that deck. It is way stronger than I ever anticipated it being. There's just like really no way to get around the Rogsai and Atali window.
That's the issue I think with that deck, is like if you're playing Zhulodok and you're playing against a turbo deck and the turbo deck goes before blue farm or something, you're not doing shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if somebody else can't stop the turbo deck, you are not stopping the turbo deck.
You're not gonna have like maybe Disruptor Flute is gonna be good if like you can get it out, just because it basically says ad nauseum costs 3 more mana. And if you know that you can get them with that with like Dark Ritual on the stack, oh, how great would that feel, right?
But Chalice of the Void, maybe. You know what I mean? Like if you can get an early Karn out, that could be helpful, but like not even necessarily.
But even like Vexing Bobble is something like you would think about playing, but I don't remember how many of those lists are actually on Vexing Bobble because of all the cascading you have to do then, right?
Yeah,
so you have to be in a scenario where you have to sacrifice it and then play a 7-mana creature.
Seems less good.
All of the 7-mana creatures aren't 7 mana. Like you don't cast the 7-mana creatures for 7 mana. You cast them for a warp cost of 3 or some kind of bullshit.
They have affinity or something like that, right?
Yeah, they're free in some other way or something.
KCI helps cast them in ridiculous ways because
KCI is so stupid.
Yeah. Karkland Ironworks breaks a very weird part of Magic the Gathering in like how you cast a spell, because the order that you cast it is first you announce that you're casting the spell. Before that you even tap any mana, you say, I would like to cast the spell.
Mirror Enforcer.
I would like to cast Mirror Enforcer. Then you check any reductions. Affinity is on. You check, I have 3 artifacts, so my thing costs 3 less to cast. Then you pay the costs. And since Karkland Ironworks ability is a mana ability, then you can sacrifice those very artifacts that the Mirror Enforcer looked at to make it cost less. I will sacrifice these artifacts to make 6 mana and cast the Mirror Enforcer or whatever you do. So you can sacrifice the stuff after you announce the reduction of the thing, and then the spell is on the stack. It checks back. You're allowed to cast a spell, right? And then it's like on the stack now.
So like you can create these scenarios where you feel like you're Atali and you're like, oh, how do I put Atali back in the command zone? Where you're like, You're just trying to go, oh, how do I cascade again? And you go, oh, shoot, here's a weird rule that I can like kind of play with and I can use to get me 2 more cascades.
Yeah, it's so bizarre how like the order, there's like 7 steps in like casting a spell. Maybe, I don't know, whoever's editing this, either you or Cubby can put them on screen, because I think they're super important to like understand how to get weird little tricks out of your deck sometimes, of like understanding the order of which you're actually casting a spell. And you can like get ahead in ways that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you just like tap my forest, cast a Birds of Paradise. It doesn't exactly go like that. You announce I'm casting Birds of Paradise, I will pay for it by tapping this forest. It's technically like that.
But again, like you're saying, a super good thing to kind of know how to get around, because there are going to be rules that you can use to your advantage to win the game.
Specifically mana abilities and in casting spells. Yeah, Zhulodok is a very interesting one.
I agree.
I think we talked enough about Rock Thrash. I think we talked enough about Blue Farm, and we talked a little about Zhulodok. What else you got?
Well, I have another one that's kind of in the same vein now.
Give it to me.
That's going to hit a little bit closer to home. This is a deck called Sémi-Gr Hulk.
Sémi-Gr Hulk?
Which is built around the concept of Sémi-Blue, except we cut one of the colors, which means that we changed up who's in the command zone.
So it's probably Tali.
It's a Tali.
Yeah, it's a Tali.
Of course it's a Tali.
It's big Tali? Is that what we're doing?
It's basically bigger a Tali, yeah. And you're like, how could a Tali go even bigger, right? Well, it's because it wasn't playing Protean Hulk and Sneak Attack before, and that's why, yeah.
I like that.
I've been thinking about this list a lot. If you want to take like a spin through it.
What's the Protean Hulk line? Is there an actual win the game line?
I'm
or is
having
it like
a hard time finding like an actual win the game line with Protean Hulk, but like you can go find Kiki with Protean Hulk. And then there's ways that you can also get Zealous Conscripts into play then too.
Yeah, okay.
I guess really what it is, it's like Sneak Attack into play and then makes Protean Hulk and Kiki even like 1 mana, and then you can start.
Realistically, you can just like go get Rionia with it. That could be something.
That's also like kind of crack too, right?
There's got to be a line though. Maybe it's like
it's just Hellkite Courser. It's just a Hellkite Courser.
I wonder if it's something with like Imperial Recruiter or something. Maybe Imperial Recruiter Sticker Goblin for 5. With the Imperial Recruiter, you go get Kiki, and then you play the Kiki with the 5 that you get, and you tap the Kiki to make a copy of the Imperial Recruiter. But you're in Gruul, so you can't get Zealous Conscripts
because of the Imperial Recruiter.
There's got to be something. Maybe you get Formidable Speaker and Sticker Goblin. The sticker makes 5. Kiki to make a copy of the Formidable Speaker, and then with the Formidable Speaker, you go get Zealous Conscripts. But where do you get the mana to cast? You
just get Formidable Speaker and you get Imperial Recruiter. The Recruiter gets you Kiki.
Where do you get the mana to cast the next thing? Or mana?
You have Sneak Attack in play. You snuck attack the Protean Hulk into play. That's how you sacrificed it. And then if you have 2 extra mana, you can Sneak Attack Kiki and Zealous Conscripts into play that you just tutored for.
If you go get Sticker Goblin and Formidable Speaker, that also works. Well, you have to, because the Formidable Speaker go gets the Kiki, you cast the Kiki, you make a hasty copy of the Formidable Speaker, and the Formidable Speaker can maybe like untap some like a Guy's Cradle mana. I guess there's a couple different ways. You just need a little extra mana.
It depends on if you have more mana or if you have more cards in your hand. Yeah. I think it just kind of depends on what you need to do.
I got to imagine though, yeah, it's some amount of Formidable Speaker / Imperial Recruiter / Sticker Goblin and Kiki Jiki.
Maybe you just go get Squee with it. If maybe you need to get Squee with it. You can even get like Treasonous Ogre with it too if you just want to make like more mana that way as well.
I'm curious if there's a more specific, just like straight up Hulk dies, we win the game on the spot situation.
That's what I would think it is that you're finding stuff with Formidable Speaker and then you're able to put the Kiki Jiki combo together, because that's the only way that you'd be able to win the game from that state.
Maybe you get like Formidable Speaker and then you get like Tinder Wall, Reckless Barbarian, and Skirk Prospector. That's 5 mana right there, and that's also 6 total mana value.
Could work.
If the Sticker Goblin doesn't make you 5 or something like that, there's got to be something around that ballpark is how you win the game with it. But either way, that's fucking cool.
Okay, so we just said a lot of really wrong things about how both Sneak Attack and Protean Hulk work, and that's not how this line works at all. Because Protean Hulk won't get sacrificed with Sneak Attack's ability until your end step, which means it's way too late to try to win the game with Kiki Jiki at that point. So from what I'm finding, this seems relatively easy to set up if we have Sneak Attack, Protean Hulk, and really any other creature in our hand. Because when we go to our end step, Protean Hulk sacrifices to the Sneak Attack's ability, and then you go get Blank Goblin and Imperial Recruiter. And then you can make, like, let's say even the worst case scenario, 4 mana off a Blank Goblin, and you Imperial Recruiter and go get Goblin Engineer. And then that way you can Sneak Attack your Goblin Engineer into play so that it gets haste from Sneak Attack, and that lets you go put your Cloudstone Curio into your graveyard. Okay, I guess you need to have another artifact in play for this to work, because then with one of your floating Goblin mana, you're going to activate Goblin Engineer to swap out your artifact in play for the Cloudstone Curio, and then use a second red. Yeah, that's perfect. So we use the red on the Goblin Engineer, we use the red on the activation, then we'll use a third red to get that other any creature from our hand Sneak Attacked into play. That will trigger the Curio to return the Blank Goblin to our hand, and then we can use the last of the Goblin mana that we had to re-sneak attack the goblin back into play, re-triggering the Cloudstone Curio, and that can let us go put like Goblin Engineer back into our hand, or the Imperial Recruiter, ideally, so that way we'll make 4 more red mana, and we can start looping the Imperial Recruiter and the blank Goblin back and forth to make infinite mana and get the rest of the creatures out of our deck that include Electro, Assaulting Battery, which says that whenever Electro leaves the battlefield, you can pay X, and if you do, he deals X damage to target player. So after you've made infinite mana, you can then use Electro to just take out the table one at a time. It leaves the battlefield. The Electro doesn't have to die, so if you bounce it back with Cloudstone Curio, it actually still works. So it took me way too long to figure out. You need a couple things in order to make this work, but it seems pretty easy so long as you have access to your sneak attack, Protean Hulks in your hand. All you need is just any other creature and an artifact in play, and you can go off on your end step, which is really cool. And you didn't have to cast any spells this way. The only thing you needed to cast was sneak attack at some point. Didn't even have to be this turn. So yeah, no Kiki Jiki with Protean Hulk. All right, let's get back to the podcast. Plus, there's some other like pretty notable things like Cloudstone Curios back in this list, which I think makes a lot of sense if you're playing sneak attack.
I'll bounce it back up, put it back in, bounce
Put your,
it back up,
yep,
put it back
and
in.
then that way, like when you sneak attack your Italian into play, so long as you spin into a creature, Cloudstone puts it back into your hand, and for just 1 more red, you get to re-Itali.
Serum Powder. Fuck yeah.
Serum Powder, yeah.
Fuck yeah, Serum Powder.
See, here, my thing with Serum Powder
You
is,
should do it.
why don't you just play a card that makes your hands better instead of like having to exile all those cards and get rid of them?
Serum
why don't you
Powder
just
looks
play...
for like 7 new cards.
Yeah, I know, but like
Just draw 7.
it's not a draw 7.
It's a draw 7.
Food Chain could have been in that first 7. Now you're gonna have a really tough time.
You don't do it then. It's a draw 7.
It feels
Serum Powder's a draw 7.
It's not a draw 7.
No, it is. It's a draw 7.
Serum Powder to me feels like, why don't you just play a card that would make your opening hand better instead of like having to find a new one? Just play something that would make your opening hand better.
I get what you're saying, and you're probably correct. I think the reason is that Serum Powder represents 7 new cards. If one of your hand is a dud, you get to look at a whole freshman
if you're
hand.
mulliganing so
If you're
much in
mulliganing-
Italy anyway, yeah.
You're
why
mulliganing
not just,
super
like-
aggressively anyway. You're looking for a very specific thing. It's probably bad. I'm
Yeah.
with you that it's probably bad, but I think that would be the justification.
Because like every one of the hands that I look at in Italy has one of the things that I need. If
Right.
I exile one of the things that I need, I now have a 0% chance of hitting that thing that I need in particular.
I know Serum Powder is notoriously very powerful in dredge decks where like you only need the one way to get stuff in your graveyard.
And you have 4 of a copy of
Right.
a card in your deck, so it's way easier to find the things that you need.
Right, and everything else in your deck is repetitive, is repetitive, is repetitive. It all has dredge, is repetitive. You know, it's all the exact same thing.
Yeah.
If I get rid of 3 dredge cards and a Narc Amoeba, I don't fucking care. There's more. The rest of the deck is all of that, so it
I
doesn't
can
matter.
make that argument for Atali too, but at the same time, because we're in cEDH, some of my win conditions are only one of. So like, it will be funny when you Serum Powder squee away and go, wow, look at
That's
this
so good.
upside, right?
That's so good.
Right, but when Food Chain's the card that you squee
Yeah.
away, or Kiki Jiki, or like one of these other win conditions that you need, you're like, nah, I'm really like lowering my odds of like actually being able to come together now at the end.
There's got to be a little bit of math that says like it's less likely that you're in a situation where you're getting rid of Food Chain than you are in a situation that you're getting rid of stuff that doesn't matter.
If that was the case, I feel like every single deck would play Serum Powder because of how important mulliganing would be.
Yeah,
in
maybe they just
cEDH.
haven't found it yet, or maybe this person is just like fucking trying shit. You know what I mean? Like
The name of this list that we're looking at is called Serum Powder Test. Yeah,
there we go. Okay.
It's called Serum Powder
Yeah, we're
Test.
just trying,
So
like-
we're not sure that it's working,
Right,
but yeah.
it's been in my considering pile for Rockside for a while. For any of these turbo decks that are just like looking to aggressively mulligan for a very specific start, it does make sense. Like it's the same thing as like Gemstone. It's the same thing as like these other pregame effects that give you just a little bit of edge when you have them, and then sometimes they're bad. No shit. No, sometimes they are bad, but when they're good, it's like a free 7 cards. Like it'll feel
The
great.
difference to me with Serum Powder is that like you're actively giving up a slot in your deck to like do something. Now like Gemstone Cavern does have this pregame effect that makes it extra busted, but in its worst case scenario, it's still a land that you play for free and it will make you mana.
Yeah.
Whereas like every time that you do not exile Serum Powder with an opening hand, it is always like a 3 hit off of your ad nauseum. It is never being cast in your deck because the 3 mana rock that only makes colorless mana is never helpful for you.
And you can flip into it off of a Tally, but that's bad. That's not good.
also
That's
bad. That
You don't
also
want-
is another bad reason to play the
Bad
card.
flip. It's a
Yeah,
bad
exactly.
flip. I will argue that Gemstone sucks. When you have to play Gemstone as a colorless land, that does suck. But I will agree that it's better than Serum
It
Powder.
at least is on and is something that you can do.
It's technically a weird Lotus Petal, you know what I mean? It costs
Yeah.
no mana and it makes some mana. This costs 3 mana. And makes
Yeah,
some
right.
mana.
Serum Powder does not turn your 99 into a 98. That is not how that works. It does not turn your 99 into a 93 even.
Yeah.
It's always still a card in your deck.
You can't pitch it to Mox Diamond where you you can pitch Gemstone to Mox Diamond.
Chrome
You
Mox
can't get it to
either.
Chrome Mox.
You can't,
Like,
although, why would you keep a hand with Serum Powder and Chrome Mox in it? You would pitch that hand because it had Serum Powder
but
in
like
it.
you mentioned the squee thing. Like there's gonna be situations where you do the Serum Powder, you exile squee, and then your next hand is fucking crack.
But also think about how many times where your first draw for the turn's Gemstone Caverns.
Yeah.
The same number of times the first draw for your turn is going to be Serum Powder.
You're gonna go, oh my fucking god, stupid card is in my deck. Like,
At least I could play Gemstone Caverns as my second land or something.
right. But it's interesting. I like that Atali pilots are trying shit out because we mentioned earlier that in a previous podcast that Atali feels like it's having a trickier time right now with the mid-range slop stuff. So I appreciate that Atali pilots are trying out new things. If you're bashing your head into the wall doing the same shit, that's not gonna work. So you gotta try weird little ways to get a little faster, to get a little bit more consistent. And I think Serum Powder is in the realm of like, yeah, this is worth trying.
We're trying shit out.
Try to track 100 games and see how often do I see this in Fuchin in my opening hand. Statistically, very infrequently, but it's gonna happen. Yeah. Do I lose that game? Do I just like mulligan regularly and just like don't keep it or whatever? Like you can also just like mulligan regular and just like, I don't have to reveal the Serum Powder. I'm not forced to. I just
That's
do a
the other
regular
thing
mulligan,
too.
right?
I'm brave enough to try Cream of the Crop from last week's episode, but I'm not brave enough to try Serum Powder.
I've talked about this before, but like I still like the Chancellor of Green and the Summoner's Pact for Elvish Spirit Guide and all of these ways that like allow you to be active on turn 1 or 2. Like if you're thinking Turbo Brain, like I only want 2 turns of the game. That's all I want. I only want to have turn 1 and then I want to win on turn 2.
Yeah.
So if something is good only on turn 0 or turn 1, that's like 50% of my game. That's like, okay, it's good half the time.
Like half the time it's fine.
That feels good. But obviously the times when it's bad, the times where you draw it on turn 3, you lost that game.
But you were probably going to lose that game anyway.
Right,
if you drew a card on turn 3,
you're already going to lose that game. That's kind of my point. Is like if it's bad on turn 3, well, you're in a bad spot. You're in turn 3. That's bad.
Cards that need to be in a specific place are really hard to utilize if there's like a cost to them being in somewhere else. Like at least Gemstone Caverns, if I cast a Tali, goes away if I spin into it, right?
Yeah.
It goes to exile. I find something good. Chancellor of the Tangle fucking sits there and I have a 6/7. The number of the day.
Nice. Although I do want to say you have mentioned previously that when cards are in the wrong spot, your brain has a hard time putting them in the right spot. You have notoriously not really loved Hulk piles because if you draw the Hulk card, you don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah,
I think this might be a you thing.
I don't know that like this version of Atali is something that I'll be trying out, but I did end up adding Cloudstone Curio and Sneak Attack into my maybe board for Atali because I think that there is a world where, well, already if Blank Goblin is on 6 and I have like a 1-drop in Cloudstone Curio, I can make infinite mana like that.
Even if it makes 5 and 1, or
probably
5 and 1 is 3 to cast, then 1 to cast, and then you have made 5 mana, so you get to go back and forth, right?
Exactly. Too. Yeah. So as long as I make 5 mana with that, I don't play Cloudstone Curio because that's not a guaranteed win condition I have all the time, and it sucks in my opening hand. But adding a synergy with Sneak Attack, it does kind of make it seem like how do you lose the game when you have both those cards in play?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then that's still 7 mana for your Atali, and then you have to cast Atali from the command zone.
That's true, but Atali, one thing Atali kind of lacks is tutors. So I like in decks that lack tutors, although you have a couple good green ones. When you lack tutors, I think you need extra win conditions. You just need like extra ways to like, I spin into that, I can win the game. Like, I spin into Cloudstone Curio, and I have this spell. Let's bounce Atali back up and replay it or whatever. Like, I like that in decks where like everything in the deck is a combo piece or a way to cast Atali. Like, I think that's a good spot for Atali because it just gives you a better odd of like naturally drawing one of the pieces and then being able to tutor for the one other piece that you need.
That's true. I mean, Sneak Attack, even in my lists, it seems pretty great to get like a ton of stuff out for 1 mana for 1 turn. Like Wandering Archaic for 1 mana for 1 turn is all that I kind of need it so that you don't interact with me.
It makes them uncounterable. It puts them into play.
It just puts them into play.
That's not going to happen a ton where they have exactly Force of Will, but it will be pretty nice when you can just like turn 1 Sneak Attack, turn 2 make enough mana for Atali, and
this
then
will
like
make me
want to
think about playing Command Beacon in the deck too.
Ooh.
Like how stupid is that? Where
puts a card from your command zone into your hand.
Yeah, put your commander from your command zone into your hand. So like your first Atali is
that's probably pretty good.
It makes your first Atali 6 mana because it's 4 mana for the Sneak Attack, a red mana for the activation, and then cracking of the.
Does it cost a mana and cracking, or is it just cracking?
It's just cracking.
It's just cracking. So it's your land
beacon,
okay. So it's 5, 6. Yeah, so 6 mana.
It's basically 6 mana for an Atali over those 2 cards.
Yeah, that part is not the ideal, but where I do think it would really shine is when you Atali costs 13 mana and you have a crop rotation on the stack, and you go get this, and then now Atali costs 7 mana or something instead. Sometimes Atali, like you do, you're twin flaming it and you're killing Atali a couple times, and it gets up to 13 mana, and then it becomes a little bit trickier. And then especially if you're doing the Sneak Attack, especially if you're doing the Cloudstone Curio, I like the way of just like putting it back in your hand. That I think it could be good.
I don't know. We were talking about a playset in cEDH being 6.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is enough of a package for me to start to want to like go around in, but it's at least enough of a something to think about with everything else that they have going on in this list that I still think is super interesting. So that's why I wanted to talk about Sémi-Gr Hulk.
More ways to make a tally cool are interesting to me.
Do you want to talk about another deck that we're playing on the channel this weekend too?
Yeah, Toph, right?
This deck is really interesting because this one, I think, has some conventional stuff that's going on, but I don't know how known a lot of the conventional stuff that it has going on is because of like how complicated the patterns are.
Realistically, I don't know all of the lines super well either. I'll be very honest with you, but I know the main one is you're looking to have Candelabra of Thanos and a Mana Vault or something that taps for 2 or 3. I think it's got to be 3.
I think you want it to be 3. Like
It's gotta
Grim
be
Monolith
3.
will work with this too.
Monolith works for 2 because
There's decks that play the 4 mana one too, the Thran Dynamo even to try to like maximize the number of these options you have.
you can also use like the artifact that makes other things an artifact.
The artifact that makes another thing an artifact.
It taps for mana, a colorless mana, or it can tap to make a permanent an artifact instead.
Yeah, Liquid Metal
Torque.
Twerk, yeah.
Liquid Metal Torque, and you make like the Bloom Tender also an artifact, and then you can do that way. Because Toph says all artifacts you control are lands in addition to their other types. It doesn't make them tap for mana because that is not an inherent part of what lands are, which is weird, I think. But it just makes them into lands, which means that Candelabra of Thanos can untap them. So if they make 3 mana, you can use Candelabra of Thanos and tap the thing for 3 mana, and then put 2 mana into Candelabra of Thanos, untapping the Candelabra itself as well as the other thing, and then you have the 1 mana left over.
Exactly, yeah.
The issue is, what the fuck do you do with that? You have to like put something into it. So like you have to put it into a Walking Ballista or one of the creatures that allows you to activate and look through your deck and look for Walking Ballista or something like that.
Yeah, or you put it into a Sensei's Divining Top. So even if it's...
Which is a weird interaction.
Yeah, exactly. So because Sensei's becomes a lands, what ends up happening is you can tap Sensei's Divining Top, and that's the only cost of Sensei's ability for you to draw a card and put it back on top of your library.
Putting it back on top is part of the resolution, not the cost.
Exactly, yeah. So what you can do is holding priority in response to your own top tap activation, you can use Candelabra to untap your Mana Vault and the top, and then that way, yeah, you're not making infinite mana anymore because you need to untap 3 things, but you're able to draw your entire deck, and you leave 1 copy of Sensei's Divining Top on top of your library after you draw the number of cards you wish to draw.
Which is pretty nice because you're playing things like Bright Heart Gear Hulk. Is that the name of this card?
Bright Glass Gear Hulk.
That's the name of it, Bright Glass Gear Hulk.
His heart is bright though.
Sure. But that card is incredibly cracked in this deck because you get every combo in one way or another. You can get the Sensei's Top, you can get the Mana Vault, you can get the Candelabra of Thanos, or you could also get like Lion's Eye Diamond and Esper Sentinel and all that shit. The deck is very interesting, but you do have to find like 3 pieces, right? You have to have your 4 mana commander in play, you have to have Candelabra of Thanos, you have to have one of the other things, and then you have to have something to do with the mana on top of that, which is kind of a lot, but the deck plays like not a lot of interaction. So everything in the deck is either mana or it is a combo piece or a tutor for a combo piece.
A way to find it, yeah.
So like it ends up feeling a little bit easier than saying it out loud actually ends up being. Everything in the deck is that. That's all it does. All it does is win the game. It's not doing anything else besides like winning. So the way that I kind of looked at it is like if you can resolve like 5 or 6 spells, you can normally put a win together out of that, which feels kind of nuts, but like everything feeds the same strategy with the deck.
Like it all just kind of works together like super nicely and coherently. Just kind of layers things together. Like Grinding Station is another one of these things that you could just have. And then it again has like a tap in. I guess it's a sacrifice thing you have to do. But
I'm just realizing right now that Zhulodok and Toph are not in this week's video. They're coming out in next week's video.
Well, good, because this episode doesn't come out for a week.
We knew the whole time. We knew the whole time. Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. We film these things ahead of time, and I know exactly what I know the schedule. Yeah. I know it so well and good. Toph is a weird one.
Toph's a weird one.
I think it's a little underrated, and I think it's actually kind of good. It can't do anything else, I don't think. You know what I mean? You could build it to do other stuff, but like all it really seems like what it does is it just wins the game.
This is what it does.
But it does it a little slow. It does it like turn 3, turn 4.
Although it does like earthbend all of your other lands though too. So like it just makes Gaia's Cradle even better. It makes all of your fetch lands even better, and like it makes Immersion Stone even better, and City of Traders and Crystal Vein. Like it just makes all of these lands that you're already playing like even more better, so that you can make more mana and help you find this win a little bit more quickly, because like you do need to get Toph out and 4 artifacts a lot of times into play.
It's got a little bit of an inevitability situation, which I kind of like for a Naya deck. You sort of need that inevitability.
Yeah, but you at least get to like kind of tempo the table a little bit in the meantime with like a copy of Silence or something.
Yeah, and I like that it does not typical Naya shit. Normally Naya shit is like very creature focused, and this has some creatures in it, but that's not really what it does. It's very much like a combo deck, sort of like more of like an artifact deck through and through.
Yeah,
really.
That's kind of what I like about it too.
Unique.
Let's talk about another deck that has unconventional things going on that might trip up some players when you play it.
Yeah, what do you got?
Wrong Sai is the name of this deck.
Yeah.
I figured we talked about one of my lists. We should probably talk about one of yours too.
This is not one of my lists. I will tell. This is a different
well,
deck
I'm also
entirely.
not on Sémi-Gr Hulk, so that's what I mean.
This Wrong Side list is kind of, from what I understand, sort of like the precursor to the Rog Ishai lists, where you're playing Rograk as like a means to like have interaction up all the time and not really necessarily a means to like win the game right away. I think the Rog Ishai one is a little bit better suited to do that because the tools that you get in white give you access to the treasure makers and the silence effects, which I think are super important to the strategy. The fact that you have Tataru Taro and Smothering Tithe and all these ways to like make mana as you're doing stuff, I think is very important. Whereas like the Grixis Color Pie doesn't have the same mana makers in that way. You know,
it has temporary mana instead. Right. Like you have the rituals and the ability to go fast with them, but like that's really what black gives you. It gives you that and the ability to win the game a little bit more quickly, whereas white gives you way more interaction instead of that quickness and speed.
And like weirdly, like with white giving you like Esper Sentinel, and like white has like gotten a lot of really good tools for this kind of like protective strategy. You know what I mean? It's gotten a lot of that recently, whereas like
Ranger Captain of Eos.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas like the tools that black gives you are like Necropotence. Like that is great card draw, no shit, but like it draws it in a specific way. It makes you the target right away. It makes you the focal point right away. And if you're playing a deck that's like slow and not prepared to back that up entirely, that's a little bit harder to do. Whereas like the white tools are like really, really good in the Rog Ishai shit.
The wrong side deck is like you said, it's kind of like this pre-version of what Rog Ishai has become. And you see that a lot with like all of the clones that people are playing in the versions of this list. And it's basically just like the slop decks. You get to play Copy Enchantment and Mirror Maid. You're trying to make as many Rhystic Studies as possible and not Necropotences. Like you play Necropotence, but you're not on Necro Dominance and you're not on Ad Nauseam even too. You're trying to draw cards in a much more traditional way and like slow yourself down a little bit.
The name of the game with the deck is Rhystic Study, and that's a good strategy. Like we have found time and time again that like turn 1 Rhystic Study will probably win you a lot of games, and this deck can not only present turn 1 Rhystic Studies very easily, but it can copy other Rhystic Studies, it can steal other Rhystic Studies, it can get Rhystic Study into play very quickly, and then just draw a lot of cards. And you have a little bit of like weird political leverage of like convincing your opponents that you're not the threat right now.
I don't play Ad Nauseam,
There's a turbo deck that's gonna win before me. We gotta focus on them first, and then we can deal with me. The devil's deal here, in the process of doing that, we all deal with the turbo deck. Well, now I, the Rog deck that's looking to control, I've drawn 20 cards. So like I'm the threat now, but you can't do anything about it because we all teamed up and we agreed that this turbo deck was the threat first, which is like fair. That's part of the game. The issue is, I think I see a lot of the times, is sometimes the turbo decks will get a little bit too scared too quickly and they'll accept a deal right away before that they should without talking to the rest of the table first.
Yeah.
The protective player can convince they're like the good guy. They can play the hero with the other players. It's a little bit tricky because that's, like I said, it's a losing situation for like all of the players kind of.
The only player that ends up coming on top is the person that already is ahead with the card advantage, and they can like kind of scare someone into going, no, I have something for what you're gonna do. You better not try to win the game and just end up giving the game to somebody else. And then that person ends up taking it for themselves.
And sometimes as the turbo deck, you have to just like take the L when you have it and just say like, okay, you have interaction here. I'm just gonna eat that counter spell, and now you're gonna feel pressured as the Rog control player because you have to deal with the other players, and then I'm gonna hope that I draw well. I'm gonna hope that I have Yawgmoth's Swill or I have another way to try again next turn. That's my true route to victory. Because just accepting, okay, what if I just Ad Nauseam for 10 cards or for 5 cards or what, you know, Necro for a little bit or whatever. I don't know that that's always really a winning strategy, because if you give the other player enough time, they get what they want.
Now you're lost, especially with Necro. What if I only do 10 cards?
Right,
like for the rest of the game, you're only gonna see 10 cards?
Right, yeah, and then sometimes you gotta, you know, different situations are different. This isn't a blanket statement, but I do think it's important that if a Rog control player is trying to like convince you to not do the thing, sometimes you have to just say like, I gotta have protection against them. I have to have a backup win. You know what I mean? Like they have Fierce for my Necro, I have to have Fierce too. You know what I mean? Like I have to be going for it at a time that I can protect, or I can just hope that I draw well after this and put the pressure on them. Let them know if you counter my spell, the player after me, they're just gonna win the game. So you countering my spell doesn't actually help you winning the game. So you shouldn't do it. That argument's not always gonna work, but sometimes I think that is like kind of the way to like beat these decks, of just like push through them, make them do it.
You have to make them do their thing, right? That's why they have those cards. Is you have to make them use them though.
Right. Them getting to hold on to that counter spell as well as then untapping and slamming a Smothering Tithe afterwards. They're gonna win that game.
You're not gonna win that game.
You don't win that game, right?
Yeah. This is just a version of Rogsai that gets to try to play that game. Is all that Rogsai is what we're saying.
Which is still, I think, a solid deck. I personally, obviously, like the turbo version of Rogsai because I think that's what black offers to the table. It offers win conditions. It offers quick ways to win the game.
Why not play into your strengths instead of like playing into a weakness instead?
Which is kind of what we said, that if you're going to go into this strategy, it really seems like Rog Ishai is the way to do it, because you can play the mana makers and you can play the silence effects and you can play all these other things that are helpful at like slowing the game down, whereas black doesn't have as much access to that.
All right, well, the last deck that we're going to talk about then, another one of these weird freak decks that I found.
Weirdo freak decks, love it.
This deck is Volo. I don't know this version of Volo, but it's Vololo Master Chef is what I'm going to call it. it because it's a Volo with background. And so, dude, I know.
Do I know what this is?
You've no idea. No. Volo's 2 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human wizard that when it enters the battlefield, you create Volo's Journal, a legendary colorless artifact with hexproof. And when you cast a creature spell, note one of its creature types that hasn't been noted for this artifact. And then for 2 and tapping it, you can draw a card for each creature type noted on target permanent you control named Volo's Journal. You can choose a background and you choose Master Chef, which is 2 and a green that lets commander creatures you control have this creature enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
Doesn't that suck?
I think it does, yes. But it made like top 4 in a tournament.
Oh my God.
So I wanted to talk about it.
Good players are really a menace to cEDH. Winning tournaments,
really are.
winning getting top 4s with shitty decks.
But like you look at like speaking of like you look at something and you go, I should expect what something does, you know, based on it being Rogsai. You would look at Volo and Master Chef and go, dude, what the hell?
You signed up for the wrong tournament on accident.
Yeah, this is the wrong tournament. Yeah. Who's to say they didn't?
Can I see some of the cards in this list?
In reality, we're actually built around Volo and like trying to draw a lot of cards with Volo.
Playing good cards, I guess.
There's 25 different creature types that you can choose from. Now, some of like the different creature types are on the same thing. Like Displacer Kitten being a cat beast counts for 2 different creature types. So when you cast Displacer Kitten, I can only choose one of them.
Elf Druids and Elf Shamans.
But I think it's when a creature, is it cast or is Volo enter?
Whenever Volo enters, create.
I'm sorry, the journal is.
Whenever you cast a creature spell.
Whenever I cast. Okay, so it doesn't work with Displacer Kitten where like if you blink something.
Oh, does the +1/+1 counter thing work with like Young Wolf? Young Wolf is in here. There's got to be a combo, right?
The +1/+1 counter thing is weird with Young Wolf because it would enter with an additional +1/+1 counter, and then Undying wouldn't be able to trigger at
That's
all.
bad.
I think is Devoted Druid in the deck.
I don't see Devoted Druid.
The main win, I think, is with Marvin the Mimic, from what I can find, with like Pillapala.
Sure. Okay.
Because then Marvin gets the ability to untap itself and make a mana, and then you can like retap Marvin with Volo's ability to draw a ton of cards.
That sounds like almost something.
It's another one of these decks we've been talking about recently that seems like it's almost something.
Yeah.
But with like enough pieces together, you can end up putting wins together because you're able to draw enough cards. Like Intruder Alarm is kind of busted in this deck.
Okay, sure.
Because then every time a creature enters, you get to untap your Volo, and now you can use like your mana dorks to retap your Volo, and then you draw a bunch of cards. You get to recast another creature that untaps your mana dorks and untaps your Volo. It lets you just like kind of keep snowballing. Then every time you cast another creature, that adds to your Volo count then too. So like Intruder Alarm kind of becomes a 1-card win con with a lot of the stuff that you already want to do. Like it's actually like a 2-card win con with your commander and Omen Hawker then, which is that mana dork that taps for a blue and a colorless only to be used for activated abilities.
Sure.
I guess that's really the main win is Intruder Alarm. Mana dorks and Intruder Alarm.
I'll believe you on this one. I don't know about any of that. All of that got very confusing to me, but yeah, sure, I'll believe you. That sounds great. I mean, it's playing a lot of good cards. It's not playing a ton of bad ones. Pillabala is kind of bad on its own, and a couple of those other ones are, but for the most part, I saw a lot of regular interaction, regular fast mana, regular stuff. Like, it's still playing good cards. It just has like a different form of card advantage that people aren't expecting. They're not going to target you, and they're not going to know how you win, and that's a good way to win games in cEDH.
That's the thing. Sure. Yeah, I think the background is really just here for the colors so that we can be in green and that we have the ability to play mana dorks and realize that's what lets Intruder Alarm be so good.
I guess that makes sense. Are there no other green backgrounds?
There's nothing else that cares about +1/+1 things. Yes, Dylan.
You got a little thing again. I'm sorry. Man, you're good now. You got it.
I must be dry today.
I just wanted to point you. Sorry.
No, I appreciate you letting me know.
Props to the player who got top 4 with this deck. This is never something that I would be able to do. Like we said, like it can attack the meta in kind of an interesting way. And any way to like draw cards and win in a way that your opponents aren't expecting, that's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're just continuing our mission of blowing up the spot of awesome brewers doing great jobs of finding cool things to do in cEDH, and we're ruining it by letting everyone know what these decks do.
Can I have one more surprise deck that I want to briefly mention? And we don't have it pulled up, so we don't have to talk about specifically, but Cabbage Merchant. We have brushed on it slightly in the past.
I was thinking about talking about that one, but we've talked about it a little recently, which is why I didn't put it on today's list.
We don't have to go too much into it.
That's why it's at the end of today's podcast.
That's why it's at the end. It's a dishonorable mention. It's a mention at the end of just like, also this one.
Because people know what it's doing now because it's starting to get more popular, but it's
doing
also
well.
Winning tournaments though too.
Yeah, and it feels very strange for a mono green instant speed combo deck or an artifact based deck to like be doing well, and I think that's part of why it's doing well, but it feels like it's really good. And obviously as a card in the 99, quite powerful, but in the command zone, you just have such a powerful engine of resources. It just makes so much mana and it makes so many artifacts, and having like a deck that cares about having a bunch of artifacts in a bunch of weird different ways Like this just makes 1,000 things. It makes so many things, and filling your board full of stuff. It's a good thing to do.
As long as you
Magic,
can
right?
use that stuff.
gotta use
and
the
I
stuff.
think the Cabbage Merchant does a great job of using that stuff, not just with its activated ability to make mana, but also with the other cards in the deck, like
Right.
all those other artifacts, like the Nuka-Cola vending machine, grinding station, like things that care about artifacts entering specifically, like makes us go absolutely wild.
Right, and it's the same thing that we've been saying over and over again with a lot of these decks is like, what are you gonna do? Like, there's a Sisei and a Cabbage Merchant. You're gonna blow up the Cabbage Merchant? Probably
No,
not,
right?
right?
You're
Like,
gonna blow up the Volo when
Right.
there's a blue farm deck at the table?
So you get like this like weird pseudo temporary hexproof a little bit, as long as you can remind the table like that deck has won 75 tournaments. This deck has won one. Like there's a difference here, and like it's hard for players in like the moment to truly evaluate which card is the thing is the most threat, because in a table full of competent piles and with decks that mulligan correctly, everything's an equal threat.
But at the same time, like, are you gonna look at the Cabbage Merchant the same way that you're gonna look at Blue Farm?
Probably not. Your emotions are going to take over a little bit, and so it should be. You know what I mean? If you do kill the Cabbage Merchant instead of the Sisei deck probably will win. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right?
So like these kind of, I'm gonna say weaker commanders, quote unquote, get to take advantage of that, and they get to live longer because they're not being heavily targeted down. So you don't have to worry about that kind of removal. You just keep the combo pieces in your hand safe by keeping them in your hand,
Right.
and then when you're ready to win safely, and you
you
just
go.
win safely.
I would say the counter argument to this, because we've been saying like, well, why doesn't everyone just play weirdo decks? Like it would seem like that would be the case. I would say the reason is these weirdo decks are often slightly less consistent. I would say because like your draws overall are worse.
Yeah, because there are a lot of other weirdo decks that get brought to tournaments that we don't talk about because they do not do well.
They lose all
As
the
a matter
time.
of fact, we would be talking about decks way more frequently if we only talked about weirdo decks that popped up in cEDH tournaments, but a lot of them do not do well, which is why we only highlight good ones, and it's like very special when something does well like that, and it can actually like kind of take a tournament by storm. I don't want to say the format by storm, because
the
like
tournament.
you have to be Magda levels good to be doing that.
Right, but I feel like it's important to kind of add that caveat of like, this isn't saying that cEDH is like 1,000 deck metagame and then you can play whatever you want and feel confident that you can win. That's not necessarily the case. If you are a very good pilot and you know your deck inside and out, I do think you can have some advantage in playing a deck that no one knows what the fuck it does.
If you are onto something, though.
If you are onto something, right? If you are like the other decks, like Blue Farm is just gonna mulligan less. Its random 7 is gonna be on average more powerful than the Cabbage Merchant's hand. And sometimes it doesn't matter. If no one thinks that you're a threat, it doesn't matter. The Blue Farm deck is going to win through the interaction that the opponents have anyway. And it doesn't matter that no one thought you were the threat, because you just lose the game before it matters. Like that's also gonna happen too, and that's part of cEDH.
And there was nothing you could do about it at the same time.
Yeah, because you're playing mono green deck and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, right? Oh, Force of Vigor, I had that, but they played around it.
They had Yawgmoth Swill or whatever.
I'm
right?
so mad about that from the other night.
The other night
that
at
was
Locos.
so good. Yeah, that was so good.
Cam was playing on Atali and had Heuristic Study and play, and like one of the few things that like Atali could have is like enchantment removal, like Force of Vigor or Endurance. So I went through a Yawgmoth Swill line instead of an Underworld Breach line.
Everyone's clapping that you did not cut that card from your deck.
I can't believe I considered it. Yeah, could have went for either too, and it was just like, I think I have a Yawgmoth Swill line here. I'll try to go for that and see what everyone's talking about it. And it was really good. You had Force of Vigor, and I was able to go through the line perfectly. And Yawgmoth Swill is just so fucking broken.
So sweet.
It's so good.
Love that.
Is that good? We said some stuff.
Yeah, I think we said some stuff. Yeah,
Cool.
there's a lot that you can do in cEDH. I've been having a lot of fun highlighting like kind of weird versions of decks to play and like other kind of non-conventional cEDH decks that are out there, because I feel like there is a lot to talk about tournament cEDH that's out there. But again, like we could just keep talking about the same 10 decks all the time, and you could watch a Pokemon Champions video instead, right? So I've been having a lot of fun like looking into some other decks.
Yeah.
It's kind of given me some inspiration as I'm deciding what other decks I want to put together too and go into some stuff. I haven't had a lot of time to build another cEDH deck quite yet, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about. So by the way, if you have any ideas for me in the comments, please let me know.
We've been talking about a lot of weirdo shit. Maybe next time we can talk about some more mainstream stuff. I know we talked about this briefly, but I would love to revisit like the best cards in each color for the format and what
I would
they have
love to do
offer.
that too. Yeah, you did bring that up again.
I have some thoughts about how red attacks the Heuristic slot meta in a very good way. Things like Jessica's Will giving you the mana for their cards and hands and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk a little bit of like what these colors offer to the current cEDH meta.
I think it's been about 2 years since we've done that
timing.
series, so I think it's about time that we revisit that because the format has changed a ton
lot.
in that time. Yeah.
And what the colors offer, I think, is a lot different. Like Lotho and Totaro Taro add a lot to white that it didn't really have a couple years ago.
That sounds cool.
Okay, thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so on Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Calvin, Mac the Mad, Seabass, Not Careth, Bob the Skull, Davishire, Abysse A, Peggy, E4 Cards and More, Red, Finks MTG, Wandering Around, Mike H, Tom Bieber, Cunin of Upkeep MTG, Nathan Cohen, Mr. Jerby, Okie Toad, Penguin Man 0089, David Newman, Johnny Denver, Omelet, Rocky Hall, Pat Fire, Spengler, Larceny Roars, Jorby Blue, Sparky B, SC Phillip, Olden Groupie, Zach Hartley, Big Legs Banjo, Reactive, Sean on the Ice, The Works 472, Gerber, Garrett, Misty, Ace, Luke Cook, Joshua Day, Demon of Roskers, Peter Stewart, Corner Wild, Uncle Butch, Luke Quadra, A. Hamid, Scott Hawk, and Baby G-Buzz.
If you want to pick up any of our merch, merch. You can do that at playtowinmtg.com.
Dragon Shield. Thank you for supporting the show. Use code PLAYTOWIN5 at the affiliate link down below for 5% off.
You can follow us on the internet for more content.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Lumi E, Bub Russell, Devin Morrow, SupremeMTGShop.etsy.com, Willow2998, Turtle99, Rick, Sharticus, McSaucy, Meta, Ben Finelli, Jason Brooks, Sharticus, that's sarcastic, sorry, Mystic Muffin Man, Zachary Coulson, Dalton Poteet, Jan Wildfing, Thomas Bueno, and David Nelson.
Dope.